The Magician with the Swine's Head, Part 1. Arabic Folk Tale. When the son of the Chan had, as before, seized upon Sidi, and was carrying him away, Sidi spoke as formerly, but the son of the Chan shook his head, without uttering a word, and Sidi began the following relation. A long while since there lived in a happy country a man and a woman. The man had many bad qualities, and cared for nothing but eating, drinking, and sleeping. At last his wife said unto him, By thy mode of life thou hast wasted all thine inheritance. Arise thee, then, from thy bed, and while I am in the fields, go you out and look about you. As he, therefore, according to these words, was looking about him, he saw a multitude of people pass behind the pagoda with their herds, and birds, foxes, and dogs crowding and noising together around a particular spot. Thither he went, and there found a bladder of butter, so he took it home and placed it upon the shelf. When his wife returned and saw the bladder of butter upon the shelf, she asked, Where found you this bladder of butter? To this he replied, I did according to your word, and found this. Then said the woman, Thou went out but for an instant, and hast already found thus much. Then the man determined to display his abilities, and said, Procure me then a horse, some clothes, and a bloodhound. The wife provided them accordingly, and the man taking with him, besides these, his bow, cap, and mantle, seated himself on horseback, led the hound in a leash, and rode forth at random. After he had crossed over several rivers he espied a fox. Ah, thought he, that would serve my wife for a cap. So saying, he pursued the fox, and when it fled into a hamster's hole, the man got off his horse, placed his bow, arrows, and clothes upon the saddle, fastened the bloodhound to the bridle, and covered the mouth of the hole with his cap. The next thing he did was to take a large stone, and hammer over the hole with it. This frightened the fox, which ran out and fled with the cap upon its head. The hound followed the fox, and drew the horse along with it, so that they both vanished in an instant, and the man was left without any clothes. After he had turned back a long way, he reached the country of a mighty Chan, entered the Chan's stable, and concealed himself in a stack of hay, so that merely his eyes were left uncovered. Not long afterwards, the beloved of the Chan was walking out, and wishing to look at a favorite horse, she approached close to the hayrick, placed the talisman of life of the Chan's kingdom upon the ground, left it there, and returned back to the palace without recollecting it. The man saw the wonderful stone, but was too lazy to pick it up. At sunset the cows came by, and the stone was beaten into the ground. Some time afterwards a servant came and cleansed the place, and the wonderful stone was cast aside upon a heap. On the following day the people were informed, by the beating of the kettledrums, that the beloved of the Chan had lost the wonderful stone. At the same time, all the magicians and soothsayers and interpreters of signs were summoned, and questioned upon the subject. On hearing this, the man in the hayrick crept out as far as his breast, and when the people thronged around him and asked, What hast thou learned? He replied, I am a magician. On hearing these words they exclaimed, Because the wondrous stone of the Chan is missing, all the magicians in the country are summoned to appear before him. Do you then draw nigh unto the Chan? The man said, I have no clothes. Hereupon the whole crowd hastened to the Chan, and announced unto him thus, In the hayrick there lieth a magician who has no clothes. This magician would draw nigh unto you, but he has not to appear in. The Chan said, Send unto him this robe of cloth, and let him approach. It was done. The man was fetched, and after he had bowed down to the Chan, he was asked what he needed for the performance of his magic charms. To this question he replied, For the performance of my magic charms, it is needful that I should have the head of a swine, some cloths of 5 colors, and some baling, a sacred figure of dough or paste. When all these things were prepared, the magician deposited the swine's head at the foot of a tree, dressed it with the cloths of 5 colors, fastened on the large baling, and passed the whole of 3 nights in meditation. On the day appointed, all the people assembled, and the magician having put on a great durga, cloak, placed himself, with the swine's head in his hand, in the street. When they were all assembled together, the magician, showing the swine's head, said, Here not and there not. All were gladdened at hearing these words, Because, therefore, said the magician, the wonderful stone is not to be found among the people, we must seek for it elsewhere. With these words the magician, still holding the swine's head in his hand, drew nigh unto the palace, and the Chan and his attendants followed him, singing songs of rejoicing. When, at last, the magician arrived at the heap, he stood suddenly still, and exclaimed, "There lies the wonderful stone." Then, first removing some of the earth, he drew forth the stone, and cleansed it. "Thou art a mighty magician," joyfully exclaimed all who beheld it. "Thou art the master of magic with the swine's head. Lift up thyself that thou mayest receive thy reward." The Chan said, "Thy reward shall be whatsoever thou wilt." The magician, who thought only of the property he had lost, said, "Give unto me a horse, with saddle and bridle, a bow and arrows, a cap, a mantle, a hound, and a fox, such things give unto me." At these words the Chan exclaimed, "Give him all that he desireth." This was done, and the magician returned home with all that he desired, and with 2 elephants, one carrying meat, and the other butter. His wife met him close to his dwelling, with brandy for him to drink, and said, "Now, indeed, thou art become a mighty man." Thereupon they went into the house, and when they had laid themselves down to sleep, the wife said to him, "Where hast thou found so much flesh and so much butter?" Then her husband related to her circumstantially the whole affair, and she answered him saying, "Verily, thou art a stupid ass. Tomorrow I will go with a letter to the Chan." The wife accordingly wrote a letter, and in the letter were the following words: "Because it was known unto me that the lost wonder stone retained some evil influence over the Chan, I have, for the obviating of that influence, desired of him the dog and the fox. What I may receive for my reward depends upon the pleasure of the Chan." The Chan read the letter through, and sent costly presents to the magician, and the magician lived pleasantly and happily. Now in a neighboring country there dwelt 7 Chans, brethren. Once upon a time they betook themselves, for pastime, to an extensive forest, and there they discovered a beauteous maiden with a buffalo, and they asked, "What are you 2 doing here? Whence come you?" The maiden answered, "I come from an eastern country, and am the daughter of a Chan. This buffalo accompanies me." At these words these others replied, "We are the 7 brethren of a Chan, and have no wife. Wilt thou be our wife?" The maiden answered, "So be it." But the maiden and the buffalo were 2 mangush, a species of evil spirit like the shumnu, and were seeking out men whom they might devour. The male mangush was a buffalo, and the female, she who became wife to the brethren. To be continued.